In our last lesson, we learned a little bit about religion in ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks believed in many gods and goddesses, and they believed that those gods and goddesses lived in a palace at the top of Mount Olympus, shown here in this picture. Some of the gods and goddesses that we learned about in our last lesson were Hermes, the messenger god, Apollo, the god of music, light, and poetry, Artemis, a huntress and the goddess of wilderness, animals, and hunting, Poseidon, god of the sea, all that cross the sea, and earthquakes, and Zeus, the god of lightning and the king of all gods. In our last lesson, we read a story about how Hermes was trying to gather all of the gods to meet on Mount Olympus. Zeus had summoned all of them to a meeting on Mount Olympus. We are going to finish our story today and meet the rest of our most important Greek gods and goddesses. Dedicate. Dedicate means to set aside as special or to offer up with respect and affection. For example, my grandmother is writing a book which she decided to dedicate to our family. Grove. A grove is a group of trees growing or planted near one another. Julie loved to walk through the orange grove and look at all of the trees. Spectacle. A spectacle is an eye-catching or amazing sight. The rowdy behavior in my sister's soccer game was a spectacle. Mission. A mission is a special job or task. Trisha was on a mission to collect as many cans as she could for the canned food drive at her school. Think of a time when you have been on a mission or have been given a mission by someone like a parent or a teacher. What was the outcome of your mission? Hermes, messenger of the gods, was on a mission for his father Zeus, the king of the gods. Remember, a mission is a special job, so the special job that Zeus gave Hermes was to find all the other gods and goddesses. Zeus was calling the most powerful gods back to the palace at the very top of Mount Olympus. Already, Hermes had passed along Zeus's message to Apollo, the handsome god of music, poetry, and light, and to Apollo's sister, the huntress Artemis. Hermes had also carried the message to Zeus's brother, the mighty Poseidon, god of the sea. Hermes' task was not yet done, however, and now he hovered above Greece, looking and listening for the signs that would lead him to the next god that he wished to find. This did not take long. In the distance, Hermes saw flashes of light from earth beneath him. Flying in that direction, he soon heard screams and angry shouts. And now he could see below him two armies engaged in a battle. The lights Hermes had seen were flashes of sunlight reflecting off of armor and weapons. The soldiers of one army were pushing back the soldiers of another army, which had now begun to panic and run. Perched on a cloud high above the battle, and clearly excited by the spectacle below, stood Ares, the god of war. Dressed all in red, tall and strong he stood, and his smile grew broader as Hermes landed beside him. "Hail, brother," said Ares, for he was also a son of Zeus. Pointing down, he asked, "Isn't it glorious? Here are humans at their best and worst, some displaying heroic courage, and others cowardly fear." He pointed, and a beam of light shone on one of the desperate soldiers. If you are desperate, you are in need of something and will do anything to change your situation. "I've been watching that fellow there," said Ares. "See how he seeks to bring his fellow soldiers together to win the battle?" Hermes had never understood his brother's attraction to battle, but it would not do to say so. Hermes thought to himself, "It seems to me that the best elements of humans are love, loyalty, and learning, not fighting. To Ares, he said, Zeus summons all of us to Mount Olympus. Without taking his eyes off of the battle below, Ares nodded and said, I will be there. What was Ares the god of? But Hermes had already flown to the Greek city-state of Athens. What's a city-state again? Right, a city-state is how the ancient Greeks split up their land. The city-states operated independently of one another, and each city-state had its own government and laws. Here, he found his sister Athena, another daughter of Zeus, and the goddess of wisdom and war, walking among a grove of olive trees. In our picture, we can see Athena on the right, wearing a helmet. With Athena was Zeus's sister, Demeter, goddess of plants and of the harvest. In her wise, intelligent voice, Athena was saying, And so, dear aunt, would you please make sure that this year's crop of olives is especially plentiful for the people of Athens? The word plentiful is like the word abundant. It means in great amount. Remember the hardy tree that the ancient Greeks were able to grow even in the rugged soil? That hardy tree is the olive tree. Gently, Demeter answered, I shall be delighted. Instantly, the nearby olive trees turned a deeper shade of green. Hermes landed, kissed his aunt's cheek, and then smiled at Athena. I have come to tell you that Zeus calls us all to Mount Olympus. Of course, Athena answered. We learned about two goddesses there. Who is the goddess of plants and of the harvest? And who is the goddess of wisdom and war? Hermes was off once more to his last stop, back to Mount Olympus, where he had started. There, Hermes followed the loud clang, clang, clang of metal striking on metal. His brother, Hephaestus, the god of fire and the blacksmith of the gods, was standing by his red-hot forge with a huge, heavy hammer in each hand, striking them in turn against a jagged lightning bolt. A forge is a place where a blacksmith works to heat metal and shape it into different objects. The lightning bolt was being shaped on top of an anvil, a heavy block of iron or steel with a smooth, flat top. Waiting outside to carry the lightning bolt to Zeus, who, as you remember, was the god of lightning and thunder, was a magnificent winged horse named Pegasus. Hephaestus did not even notice Hermes until the messenger god called out, loudly enough to be heard over the hammer strokes, Greetings, brother. Hephaestus stopped hammering and, wiping the sweat from his brow, looked over at Hermes. The two gods, though brothers, appeared to be opposites. Hephaestus was huge and muscular in his upper body, but slow-moving due to an injury that had left his legs badly damaged. Hermes was slender and so smooth that he seemed almost to dance in all of his movements. Hephaestus's face broke out into a big grin when he saw the messenger god. Brother, where have you been while I have been tied down here at my forge? He asked in his slow way. If Hephaestus is tied down, this means that he is very busy and unable to leave because he has so much to do. Practically everywhere, Hermes answered. Zeus has sent me to summon everyone to the Great Hall. By everyone, Hermes meant the main gods, of whom he himself was one. In fact, there was only one left to contact. Would you ask your wife to join us? He asked. Hephaestus frowned. She does not like to be awakened this early, he said, even though it was nearly noon by now. But if it is for Zeus, I will do it. Hephaestus's wife was the most beautiful of all of the goddesses, the goddess of beauty itself and of love. Aphrodite. Aphrodite was as used to luxury, or comforts and pleasures, as Hephaestus was to hard work. Hephaestus told Hermes, "We will come." Finally, all of the gods and goddesses had gathered. Aphrodite told Athena in a laughing voice, "I'm sorry I look like such a mess, but Hephaestus said I had to hurry." Athena smiled to herself, for as always, Aphrodite was absolutely stunning. Athena had no chance to reply, for now the king and queen of them all, Zeus and Hera, entered. Hera was the goddess of feminine power and women's lives. She knew why Zeus had summoned them all. The family of the Olympian gods was about to welcome a new member. Zeus raised a hand for silence, smiled, and announced, "Today is a special day. Today we invite to join us here on Mount Olympus a new god, the youngest of us all. Humans will worship him as they worship the rest of us." Zeus continued, "Welcome among us, Dionysus, god of wine, pleasure, and theater." Suddenly, there appeared a handsome fellow with laughing eyes, a lazy smile, and dark curly hair. Dionysus spoke in a light, easy tone. "I am honored. I shall teach humans to make wine and raise it in cups of praise to us all, and they shall dedicate their finest plays to the gods and goddesses. In these ways, I hope to provide pleasure to humans and honor to us all." And so it was that Dionysus joined the household of the gods and goddesses atop Mount Olympus, completing what is known as the 12 Olympian gods. Alright, my friends, today we finished our story about Hermes and his mission. Was he able to complete that mission? Yes, he was able to deliver that message to all of the gods and goddesses. Why did Zeus summon all of the gods and goddesses to Mount Olympus? Yes, he was introducing a new god, Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and pleasure. Name some of the gods and goddesses that we learned about today. Turn to whoever's helping you today and see if you can name some of the gods and goddesses that we learned about today. Today we talked about a lot more of these 12 gods and goddesses. We talked about Ares, the god of war, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, Demeter, who causes the seasons to happen and plants to grow, Hephaestus, who created lightning bolts for Zeus to throw, and Dionysus, he was our last one. Hermes found his brother Hephaestus in the forge. What was he doing in the forge when Hermes found him? Right, he was making lightning bolts for Zeus. What did Athena ask Demeter to do for the people of Athens? Athena asked Demeter to make their olive crop more plentiful or greater in number. Plentiful means greater in number. Now I want you to turn to whoever's helping you. The Greeks worshipped many different gods and goddesses. I want you to tell whoever is helping you today if you could be a god or a goddess, if you could be one of the Olympian gods or goddesses, which one would you want to be and why? Which god or goddess would you want to be and why? Alright, my friends, we've got a couple more assignments to do today. I am going to jump over to my computer so I can tell you what those will look like. right, when you get that PDF open in Kami, it should look like this. We have already talked a little bit about religion. So on our religion page, we already have some information about Greek religion. We talked about how they believed in many different gods and goddesses, and they believed Mount Olympus was the home of the gods. Our other notes that we took in our last lesson are notes about the gods and goddesses themselves. Today, we learned about even more gods and goddesses, and we're going to take some notes about the gods and goddesses we learned about today. Remember, when we're taking notes, we're writing down the most important things that we need to remember, but not every single detail. I'm going to grab a text box, and we'll add some more notes. Who was one of the gods that we learned about today? See if you can think of some of the gods we learned about and write them in your text box. All right, let's go through some of those. Today, the first god we met was the god Ares. Ares. What was Ares the god of? Ares was the god of war. After Hermes, our messenger god, found Ares and gave him the message to meet on Mount Olympus, he went to two goddesses. One of those goddesses was Athena. Do you remember what Athena was the goddess of? Athena was the goddess of wisdom and of war. The other goddess that he ran into was Demeter. Do you remember what Demeter was the goddess of? Demeter was the goddess of the harvest. After he met Athena and Demeter, he met the blacksmith god, who worked in a forge to make lightning bolts for Zeus. Do you remember what his name was? His name was Hephaestus. Was blacksmith for the gods. We also met Hephaestus's wife. Hephaestus's wife is the goddess of beauty and love. What was her name? Her name was Aphrodite. Goddess of beauty and love. Once all of the Greek gods had gathered on Mount Olympus, Zeus and his wife, Hera, met them. Do you remember what Hera was the goddess of? Hera is the goddess of feminine power and women's lives. The reason Zeus summoned them all to Mount Olympus was to introduce a new god, the god of theater, wine, and pleasure. Do you remember what his name was? That god was Dionysus. All right, my friends, if there are any other important notes that you want to make about any of these gods, go ahead and do so. If your notes are a little bit different than mine, that's okay. I want to add one more note to remind myself that these 12 gods that we wrote are considered to be the most important? These 12 are the most important of Greek gods. All right, my friends, when you are finished taking notes, again, if you want to add any extra notes, that's okay. Or if you want to add pictures, that's okay too. When you are done, go ahead and turn that one in. And you are all finished with knowledge for today.